Good evening and a very warm welcome. You're watching Dispatch right here on WION World as One with me, Alison LaGrange. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines.
यह दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है कि एससीओ एजेंडा में बार-बार अनावश्यक रूप से द्विपक्षीय मुद्दों को लाने के प्रयास हो रहे हैं जो एससीओ चार्टर और शंघाई स्पिरिट का उल्लंघन करते हैं.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the virtual summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization takes a dig at Pakistan and China, says raising bilateral issues at multilateral forums is against the organization's charter. In 6 weeks of fierce clashes over the disputed Nagorno Karabakh region, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan says that he had signed a painful agreement with Azerbaijan and Russia to end the war over the disputed region. Azerbaijan says that the Karabakh ceasefire is a surrender by Armenia. Protesters storm Armenia's parliament and government headquarters in Armenia's capital of Yerevan, denouncing the country's leadership for giving in to Azerbaijan. A day after Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Ali refused to convene a party meeting, the party chairman, Pushpa Kamal Dahal, calls for the party core committee meet this evening. The tensions between the two leaders intensified after Ali met India's Raw Chief Samant Kumar Goel last month and the party demanded an explanation. Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat dies after contracting COVID-19 at the age of 65. Erekat was the Secretary General of the Palestine Liberation Organization and a prominent spokesman for the Palestinian cause for over 3 decades. Trump accuses the FDA and Pfizer of withholding the COVID-19 vaccine announcement before elections, calling the timing of the move political. Pharmaceutical companies Pfizer and BioNTech yesterday announced 90% efficacy in its vaccine in preventing the SARS-CoV-2 infection. Layoffs in Britain hit a record high, with the unemployment rate jumping to 4.8%. This as the coronavirus pandemic wipes out a record number of jobs in the country in the third quarter. China launches the world's first 6G experimental satellite with the aims to roll out the ultra-fast network by 2030. Chinese experts expected their new network to be 100 times faster than 5G. Good evening and welcome. Let's take a look at the top story that we are tracking for you this hour. After days of fierce clashes in the disputed Nagorno Karabakh region, Armenia and Azerbaijan have finally signed a deal to end the war. The two warring nations signed an agreement with Russia to end the fierce fighting in the disputed region. Now, the pact signed with Russia calls for the deployment of nearly 2,000 Russian peacekeepers and territorial concessions.
Исходим из того, что достигнутые договоренности создадут необходимые условия для долгосрочного и полноформатного урегулирования кризиса вокруг Нагорного Карабаха на справедливой основе и в интересах армянского и азербайджанского народов.
Meanwhile, Russia has started to deploy its peacekeeping troops to the war-ravaged enclave as a part of the peace deal. The deal, agreed by Armenia, Azerbaijan and Russia, ushered in a full ceasefire from midnight, freezing the conflict. Under the deal, Azerbaijan will get to keep all of its territorial gains, including the enclave's second city of Shusha, and the ethnic Armenian forces must hand over control of other territories between now and December. Russian peacekeepers will be deployed in the region for at least 5 years. Azerbaijan has called the Karabakh ceasefire a surrender by Armenia. Azeri President Ilham Aliyev described the deal as historical. In a televised address, Aliyev said, with this agreement, and I quote, "We end the occupation of Azerbaijani lands."
Поэтому сегодня с чувством радости, с чувством гордости я подписываю этот документ и хотел бы поздравить весь азербайджанский народ с этим историческим событием. Спасибо.
Meanwhile, hundreds of people took to the streets of Azerbaijani capital Baku on Tuesday to celebrate the announcement of the agreement. Baku residents expressed their delight over the recent developments. Armenian Prime Minister took to social media to announce the peace deal. Pashinyan has said on Facebook that he had signed an agreement with the presidents of Azerbaijan and Russia to halt the fighting that has raged since late September. He wrote that the decision was unbelievably painful for him. Protests have started to erupt across Yerevan following the announcement of the peace deal. The Armenian protesters, angry over the country's agreement to end fighting with Azerbaijan over the disputed Nagorno Karabakh region, stormed the government headquarters in the capital city. Chaotic scenes erupted inside Armenia's parliament in the early hours of Tuesday as protesters, angry at the ceasefire deal, seized control of its chamber and denounced the country's leadership. Hundreds of people stormed into the buildings to express their dissent. Now, several protesters also gathered outside Prime Minister's official residence to call out to the government. Prime Minister Pashinyan and said that those involved in the unrest would be severely punished.
Դեբոշներ սարքողների մեջ կան օրինակ օլիգարխների, այսպես ասած, հանցավոր խմբեր։ Այդ են մարդիկ են, ովքեր 20 տարի գողացել են զինվորից, ովքեր 20 տարի գողացել են բանակից, ովքեր 20 տարի հարկ չեն վճարել, այսօր եկել են ազգի ու դավաճանության մասին են խոսում։
Earlier, we spoke with political analyst from Russian international news agency Sputnik, Dmitry Babich from Moscow. Listening to what he had to say.
Well, I think it's welcome news because the carnage, the killing has been going on far too long. And if it's possible to enforce a compromise between the warring parties, I think that's already a huge achievement. And it's very important that Russian peacekeepers will be deployed there because Armenia traditionally views Russia as an ally, and the Azerbaijani president Ilham Aliyev on his side also said that he is happy that Russian troops will be separating the two sides. So it's a very good development that the peacekeepers who will be between the Russian and the Armenian forces have the trust of both sides. The situation would have been much worse if a party that is supported by only one side would be placed between them. He may lose his position in the government. He may lose a part of his popularity. Let me remind you that he came to power as a result of a protest action which had a vivid pro-Western, anti-Russian character. And after coming to power in this way, he started to demand from Russia military help during this current crisis, because Azerbaijan is stronger than Armenia militarily, financially, and he, Mr. Pashinyan suddenly became a victim of his own ambitions, because he, in a way, provoked the Azerbaijani attack, which of course was an attack, by his statements that Nagorno Karabakh is a part of Armenia forever, and it even contradicted the official narrative of Armenia, because Armenia never quite recognized Nagorno Karabakh Republic as a state. So the position in this crisis was that we have an alliance with Armenia, but not with Nagorno Karabakh. If Armenia is attacked, then Russia would have to help, but cannot extend our security guarantees to a region which Armenia does not even officially consider its own territory. Well, I think Mr. Pashinyan's career is in danger now. He obviously will lose some of his popularity. Ilham Aliyev, on the other side, I think is going to consolidate his power in Azerbaijan. He was viewed mostly as his father's son until recently, because his father, Haydar Aliyev, was, the first president of, the first president under whom Azerbaijan became stable in the years of independence from the Soviet Union. So he got his position from his father, but several years of very successful economic development, and this story with a return of territories will, of course, add to Ilham Aliyev's popularity.
Moving over to Nepal now, the political crisis continues to escalate. Prime Minister Ali's rival Prachanda has called for a core committee meeting of the Communist Party. Now, sources are telling WION that the ruling party is on the brink of a split. The core committee has 9 members. 5 of them are expected to back Prachanda, now leaving the Prime Minister in a minority. Now, Prachanda has been demanding a core committee meeting for quite some time, but Prime Minister Ali has been denying the request, warning that such a meeting would split the party. Now, we are being told that the Prime Minister's camp is trying to decide on the next course of action. The Chinese embassy in Nepal is keeping a close eye on the affairs. Beijing is worried about 2 things. 1, a split which is likely to erode the current government's pro-China policy. 2, the improving relations between India and Nepal. Now, China is reportedly pressing both factions in the party to avoid a split. It's good news for adventurers around the world. Nepal's iconic mountains are now open. Tourist operators are upbeat, but visiting the country won't be easy. There are strict health guidelines in place to prevent an outbreak.
For 7 months now, these iconic peaks have remained unchallenged. These fabled mountain trails untrodden. But not anymore. Nepal is open for tourism again. The tourism industry is a mainstay of the Nepalese economy. It brings in much needed foreign reserves and supports 800,000 people. Tourism operators sound upbeat about the road ahead.
The entire mountaineering community in Nepal, including the entrepreneurs, guides and workers, are really excited the government is reopening the mountains to foreign climbers. We are really hopeful the tourism sector will revive soon.
But before you pack your bags for Nepal, here's something you should know. Not everyone is welcome. The visa on arrival system has been suspended. You need prior approval. Plus, a COVID negative certificate and a health insurance that covers treatment for COVID-19. There are strict rules for guides and porters as well. But if you ask them, they're just happy to be back at work.
We are all happy that we will be back in our jobs soon. The last few months have been financially difficult and mentally torturous for us. Now we are finally back in our jobs. But because of the pandemic, very few tourists are expected to come.
Spring is climbing season in Nepal. This year it was entirely lost to the pandemic. As the winter sets in, there is little hope of a quick recovery. All hopes are now pinned on the 2021 spring season. when climbers set their sights on the biggest prize of them all, Mount Everest. South Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
According to reports, an escalating conflict in Ethiopia's restive Tigray region has killed hundreds of people. This comes even as the country's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has sought to reassure the world that his nation was not sliding into a civil war. The flare-up in the northern area now threatens to destabilize Africa's second most populous nation. Ethiopian troops took an airport in the Tigray region during an offensive against the local leaders, openly defying Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's authority. Abiy Ahmed, the contingent's youngest leader at 44, won a Nobel Peace Prize last year for democratic reforms. But last week he ordered airstrikes and sent troops into Tigray. Now he accused them of attacking a military base in the town of Dansha. Abiy Ahmed has said that the government jets have been bombing arms depots and other targets. Tigrayans instead said that Abiy's government oppresses and discriminates against them and behaved autocratically in postponing a national election. Aid workers and security sources have reported heavy fighting on the ground. Cracks in the union first emerged in September. Tigray held parliamentary elections without permission from the centre, and the vote was declared illegal. At the heart of this brewing civil war is a battle for influence. Tigray accounts for just 5% of Ethiopia's population, but thanks to a well-trained army and a strong economy, it has always enjoyed disproportionate power in government. That changed when Abiy Ahmed came to power in 2018. The ethnic conflict has already killed hundreds by then. But after Abiy Ahmed took over, major Tigrayan officials were either fired or sidelined. It was a part of his crackdown on corruption. Now, in response, the Tigray government declared Prime Minister Abiy as illegitimate. The African Union has now called for an end to the bloodshed. An all-out war would damage the economy after years of steady growth in the nation of 110 million people. It could also add to the hundreds of thousands displaced over the last 2 years. A temple dedicated to the Roman god of Zeus is providing shelter to displaced Syrians. Syrian families uprooted by a constant state of war have found refuge in the temple that dates back to the 2nd century. Here's a report.
These are the ruins of a 2nd century temple in Syria near the border with Turkey, dedicated to the Greek god Zeus. Not much remains of this Roman-era temple. This is the UNESCO-listed site of Bakira. Even today, the temple's broken walls and columns are providing refuge to displaced Syrians, whose families and homes have been destroyed by the war.
I chose this place because it provides peace of mind, far from overcrowded places and those riddled with disease.
My son and wife died due to the bombardment on our village. When they died in front of my eyes and less than a meter away from me, I packed up my things the second day and left. I migrated to Ras Al Hosn.
These families are among the million Syrians who fled their homes last winter during a Russia-backed offensive on Syria's last jihadist stronghold of Idlib. They have set up tunnel-shaped tents at this historical site, strewn with broken columns and a plinth. Though away from constant shelling and overcrowded camps, the site holds its own set of dangers.
There's grave danger. There's a lot of snakes and scorpions. 2 days ago, near the tent's opening, I killed a viper. My son came to me trembling and told me he saw a snake. So I went out of the tent and killed it. Every other day we have to kill a scorpion. The snakes and scorpions are many, but we haven't found anywhere better than here yet.
In Bakirha, Zeus Bomos, or Zeus of the altar, was built almost 2 millennia ago. Today, laundry hangs on a rope strung between its ancient walls. The refugees have been allowed to stay for now. They have been warned not to damage the historical site.
We are aware that they live there.
and we are following up with their situation. We granted them permission to live there, but with conditions. They must preserve the archaeological sites and refrain from tampering with them. They must also inform us of any tampering done by others, such as those looking for artifacts.
They are telling us to evacuate the premises. But where do we go? We've got used to this place. Where else can we go? To the street? We don't know where to go. We will have to move back to our villages and live under constant shelling.
Syria is filled with archaeological sites. From Roman temples, Byzantine churches, Crusader castles to Ottoman-era structures. Many have been damaged, bombed or plundered through the 9-year-old conflict that has killed more than 380,000 people and displaced millions. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Brazil has halted the trial of a Chinese coronavirus vaccine. In a statement, Brazilian regulator Anvisa has said that it had ruled to interrupt the clinical trial of the CoronaVac vaccine after a serious adverse incident. It said it could not give details on what happened because of privacy regulations, but that such incidents included death, potentially fatal side effects, serious disability, hospitalization, birth defects, and others. Now, clinically significant events, these setback for the CoronaVac, which is developed by the Chinese firm Sinovac Biotech, came on the same day as the announcement by the US pharmaceutical giant Pfizer, which said that its own vaccine candidate had shown 90% of effectiveness, and both the Pfizer and Sinovac vaccines are in phase 3 trials. Now, the final stage of testing before regulatory approval, and both are being tested in Brazil, the country with the second highest death toll in the pandemic after the United States. Meanwhile, Sinovac has reacted, saying that its vaccine is safe and that the adverse event was not related to the trials. CoronaVac has been brought up in a messy political battle in Brazil, where its most visible backer has been Sao Paulo Governor Doria, who is a top opponent of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. Meanwhile, Bolsonaro has labelled CoronaVac as the vaccine from that other country and pushed instead for a rival vaccine developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca. On to our next story now. Ladybird Logistics, a women-only trucking company in Ghana, has seen its fleet of trucks quadruple in the past 2 years and the number of its female drivers triple. Now the company is succeeding in the face of low expectations. Here's the report.
Iram Sador is proud to be one of the first women to join Ladybird Logistics, a trucking firm in Ghana that claims to be the world's first to hire only female drivers. She also loves seeing newly recruited ladies get behind the wheel.
The company is developing, because we start with 11 drivers. We are the first batch, and now everything is improving well, more drivers are coming, more cars are coming.
Since starting in 2017, the company has grown from 5 trucks in 2018 to 20 trucks today, with 35 women drivers and 14 more in training. While some of Ghana's male truckers encourage them, the company says others don't want to see women in the profession.
The guys thought this wouldn't be possible, and they were thinking maybe the trucks, the women will be smashing the trucks here and there. But 2 years down the line, we are still going and we are growing.
Ladybird drivers say the work is empowering and shows the importance of giving women equal opportunities.
You can't recruit only men. We've got families to feed. And what if my husband is the only person who brings income and then he's sick? So I bring income, he also brings income. It helps the society, it helps the country. Women take care. When you educate a woman, you educate a country.
S&M Nyairo has been pushing Ghana's women to get into commercial driving. She started out in Accra as a taxi driver, also a job dominated by men. Now she trains women to drive trucks and buses and has seen increasing support from Ghanaian men.
When you have fathers, brothers, uncles talking to you and asking how they could get their nieces, their daughters and their grandchildren into the profession, it tells you society has been listening.
Ngaido and Ladybird Logistics say they will continue steering more women into the profession. Stacey Knott for VOA News, Takoradi, Ghana.